Okay, right. So I've changed up the programming a little here. I'm just trying to maybe do some movies that I find happy or uplifting for a little while, cheer myself up. It's funny because when I was looking at a lot of the movies that I considered doing for a commentary, most likely a solo commentary, I tried to focus on the ones I knew best, ones that I'd seen many times and would have be easy to talk about and was very familiar with. And problem with a lot of those movies, even though they do make me happy, is a lot of them do have like a lot of dark elements that usually are great, but maybe I'm just not in the mood for right now. Like I was thinking about doing Pan's Labyrinth, and I was just like, no, I can't do Pan's Labyrinth right now. So that'll be sometime later, I guess. And I eventually got around to this movie. This is Saved from 2004, which I saw in the theater. It's a weird instance of like me going to see it without knowing much about it. It didn't seem to get much advertising or anything. I don't remember any TV spots or anything about it. I just remember sort of at the last minute deciding to go see it, knowing that it was sort of a little part of Macaulay Culkin's comeback. He'd been absent from film since about the mid '90s. He had done a movie before this in 2003 called Party Monster. I think that was his first real comeback, and then he's in this. Of course, he's not the main character in this; he's a supporting character, but he's pretty good. Has Jenna Malone, Patrick Fugit, and of course Mandy Moore, whom you'll hear me gush about a lot. I do own the movie on DVD. Here's an old DVD of it. Mandy Moore's got the halo, of course, and as her character Hilary Faye, she's a bit of a hypocrite, kind of not exactly a villain, but she's not as angelic as this would suggest. But to me, the real world Mandy Moore is an angel. I love her so much. She's too tall for me though. She'd be like almost 2 full inches taller than me. I don't know. But she's I just love her so much, and I think she has like the perfect voice, speaking and singing. There's two people I think I think the male perfect voice is David Usher, lead singer of Moist and solo artist. I love hearing him talk and sing. And same thing with Mandy Moore. She'd be the female equivalent of that. I could listen to Mandy Moore read the phone book. And I've always been impressed by Mandy Moore because of the career she's had. She started out very much as sort of a bubblegum pop star, pushed and handled along by the various producers and things. You can see that in the stuff she did from the time she was in her about like 15 on. Took her a while to sort of get control of her own career and do the music that she really wanted to do. Also, at the time, she was an actress too, and she's not everything she's in is great, but I did think she did make an effort to maybe pick more interesting things. But anyway, this is 2004. I think Mandy is maybe a year younger than me, so she'd only be about 36, 37 right now, which is amazing to think of because she's been around so long, but she started young. Anyway, I don't even know where I'm going with this anymore. But anyway, so like most of the characters in this, she's a little bit older than the character she's playing. These are high school students, but I mean, that's completely normal in this. What impresses me is that Jenna Malone is here, our lead, Mary. 3 years before she played a high school student in the movie Donnie Darko, and like 3 years later, she still pretty much looks the same. And there's certain I've always talked about how there's certain actors that I think are defined by certain roles, and others are even more just defined by maybe not just one role, but several they did within like a period of themselves. So I always sort of think of them at that age. There's not too many where I'll always think of them as teenagers, but Jenna Malone is kind of one of them, even if she's in her early 20s when she's doing that. Like all the movies I've seen where I notice her, she's basically at least playing a teenager or maybe very early 20s. And I remember a couple years ago seeing her, obviously well into her 30s now, maybe even close to 40. She was in the movie The Neon Demon. And, I don't know why it weirded me out, but it weirded me out seeing her older. I was just used to that, I guess. I know Macaulay Culkin turned 40, I think, earlier this year. Tweeted that to make people like me feel old as I creep closer to 40. But, this doesn't require a lot of preamble. Like I said, yeah, so getting back to the theater thing, I don't even remember who I saw it with. I definitely saw it with people. I didn't go alone. And it was a very crowded theater. It was packed, really. And it was one of those nights that was really worked out because the audience really liked it. I really liked it. A lot of laughs and reactions and stuff. The movie had a very indie sort of feel, I guess. It's the early 2000s. This sort of stuff was maybe a bit new to me at the time. Anyway, I've just always been a big fan of this movie. As you can see, I bought it way back in the day, probably when it first came out on DVD. Still don't have a Blu-ray of it yet, but I'll track it down at some point. But I'm just watching it right now. It's on Prime, so it's on Prime for me at least. I know sometimes that's different in the United States and other places, but I've got it queued up, and it starts with the MGM logo, so I've got it queued up there, and we'll get into it. It's just a movie that's always really spoke to me. Not that I can relate to it very much. I grew up going to church and was very involved in my church, but it wasn't like this. This is quite exaggerated. And that was another thing. Like, it wasn't until after I saw this movie that I found out. Maybe probably like from message boards on like IMDb back in the day, people saying like, yeah, like they lived in communities or went to schools that was pretty much exactly like this. That this was not even that much of an exaggeration. And that was news to me. I didn't really know if that existed, but I guess it did, or whatever. I know a few years ago they did what a documentary called, like, what it was, a Jesus camp, about some of those evangelical Christians and how hardcore they are. And I mean, we'll get into it as the movie goes, but there's various movies. This is the type of thing that might, I'm sure, upset some of those people and talk about maybe liberal Hollywood or something trying to turn everyone into atheists. But it's really not that. It's not just about mocking people for having faith, because as you'll see, our main character Mary, as she goes through this, her views and things change, but her faith does not. At the end, she still has a very strong faith in God, and she still believes most of the same things she believes. She's just learned to be a little more flexible and maybe less rigid and less naive, and that's really what it's about. Like, and what's interesting is that, and Mandy Moore, of course, is shown to be somewhat of a hypocrite. And again, I guess some people in watching this could see her as the villain. It's like, oh, she's really religious, so we're going to make fun of her as the bad guy. But no. And around the same time, Mandy Moore did a movie called, it wasn't A Walk to Remember, I don't think. It was another one that was around the same time. But she did another one. And in it, she plays a fairly religious girl. And I think she's like dying of cancer or something. And it's with, what is it? Somebody West. And anyway, it's about, like, he's sort of a bad boy and she's a religious preacher's daughter, but they come together and they fall in love and they wind up getting married because she's going to die, and they spend like a summer together before she dies. It's one of those really sort of tearjerker movies that a lot of teenage girls enjoy because they like that sort of tragedy element to it, I guess. But what's interesting about that is she is a very religious person in that she has a strong faith, and in no way in that movie is like that played for laughs, is it no way like show negative, So as someone who is not religious and hasn't been religious for many years, and sometimes maybe I can make fun of some of the people that are, I try to draw a distinction between making fun of people for, I don't know, being intolerant and rigid, and making fun of people just because they have a strong faith. Again, it's not something I can relate to. I've not had a faith since I was a little kid. It seems unlikely it's coming back anytime soon. But it doesn't mean I have anything against the people that have it. It's not something I can relate to anymore. It's not something I can get into the headspace about. But I would never dislike somebody, criticize them, or make fun of them just because they had a strong religious faith. There's other stuff that goes with it that perhaps I might be annoyed about or upset about, but the faith itself and a belief in, I don't know, a loving God or whatever, that's all fine with me. In fact, it's something that I'd like to believe in. Who wouldn't want to believe in, heaven? Thinking about that a lot lately. But anyway, I'll just say one more thing. It's funny, whenever I see angry religious types spout off about atheists and they don't like it, it seems weird because they don't seem to understand what an atheist actually is. I mean, if you're a religious person, you believe in some version of God, and usually something that conforms to one of the major religions. Everybody knows that to believe in God is to believe in God. Now, to be an atheist means you don't believe in God. You don't think there actually is any higher power or supernatural being or force or anything like that. And what's funny to me about some of these religious types is that's not really, it doesn't seem to be that's what they think. It seems to be they think atheists do believe in God, but like to deny his existence or make fun of him. And that's not what being an atheist is. Being an atheist means you just, like, honestly can't, you can't find it within yourself to believe that whatever is real. But a lot of religious people, I think they're just so entrenched. It's like, well, because for them, it's not just faith; it's fact. Fact. There is a God. Boom. So it's like you're just denying facts. So you know it's true. So you're just being a jerk about things, and that's really not what being an atheist is. If you're an atheist, you don't believe in God. You don't think there actually is a God based on whatever evidence you might use for that. And I can say, as an atheist, there's plenty of times where I kind of wanted to believe there was a God because maybe it would give me some comfort about some things, such as like an afterlife. And I can't find it within myself to do it like I could when I was a kid. But yeah, I think there's a lot of religious types that seem to get that confused. You know, they'll talk about atheists being smug and all this stuff, which no, I think they're a little confused and misguided. But anyway, let's get into the movie here. Nice hour and a half standard movie, some good music in it that we'll talk about as we go. So we're at the 0. I'm at 3 seconds. Our lion is about to do his roar. I'll have to probably adjust the volume. So here we go. 3, 2, 1. PS4 engage. Yeah, it still seems pretty loud, doesn't it? It's always too loud. It's going to open with a cover of the Beach Boys classic song "God Only Knows." And what's weird is that it's Mandy Moore singing it first, which makes sense. She's in the movie, but she's doing a duet with Michael Stipe of all people. Michael Stipe from REM. You're like, well, where does that come from? Well, Michael Stipe is one of the producers of this movie, apparently. So that's why. But I mean, it's a wonderful song. It's written by Brian Wilson, sung by Dennis. Paul McCartney said it was always one of his favorite songs. He used to sing it to his children. This is directed by Brian Danley. Name that doesn't jump off the page, but I can just get swept up. I can listen to Mandy Moore sing anything. And I mean, obviously, she's still under 40. She still has the same voice. Yeah, I was really sad that in Kingdom Hearts, in the original, she was the voice of Aerith, which I loved. And then in the Kingdom Hearts 2, she didn't come back, and I really did not like whoever it was. No, I adore the voice actress who plays Aerith in Final Fantasy VII Remake. She's great. And she really gets the character. But still, if it could have been Mandy Moore, but oh well. Speaking of other, I can't remember her name, but speaking of other actors and actresses that pop up in certain kind of movies, Patrick Fuge is sort of the same way. I remember a few years, this is 7 years ago now. Like I saw Gone Girl, and he's in that. He's like about 30 in Gone Girl. He's a cop, and again, it weirded me out. It's like, no, just think of him at a certain age. So of course, Mary is a very meaningful name for the character. Especially for a 3-year-old. I think that's right where it comes off right, is that some of this stuff is pushed on kids before they're old enough to really understand or make their own choices, which I do kind of disagree with. I'm not saying it's wrong to take your kids to church or anything like that. I'm just saying, I don't know. Maybe I should leave some of this religious, heavy existential stuff where it is, but I can't help it. It's how I've been feeling. I've suffered a loss. What can I say? So it starts off, of course. Of course he's white. Mandy using the word retarded there, Hillary Faye. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. They are protesting Planned Parenthood. Right, so she's growing up with her mother. She's got a single mother, no siblings. Oh, I also have another sort of personal tie to this movie I forgot about. They'll get into later. Yeah, produced by Michael Stipe and Sandy Stern. But you don't hear Michael Stipe in the opening. You only hear the full version at the end of the movie. But it is kind of weird. It's not two people you'd ever really think having anything to do with each other, Michael Stipe and... Yeah, Ben, I never shut up about her. In fact, if you came in a little late, you missed my whole thing about how I think she's so perfect and lovely.
It's lame. I know. This wasn't exactly the one to the beach house.
I don't know. I think the jokes still really land. I just remember these all got really good reactions in the theater. Everybody laughing in the theater. And I mean, I've been in the theater. I've had those moments where it's like, am I missing something, or I'm just smarter than everybody? Where I've gone to see comedies in theaters and people are laughing and I'm not laughing. But this time I was sort of gay. All right, so crisis starting right here. Her boyfriend thinks he's gay. Saved by the Christ-like pool guy. Right, so it starts with a familiar position, finding out that her boyfriend is gay. To her, that means, there's something wrong with him and he needs help. So she's not on the "you're going to hell, I hate you" type thing, but it's still the misguided, if he's gay, that he obviously can't be saved or go to heaven or whatever the hell they think. So he needs help. So she's trying to figure out how she can help him, and she's on her cute little early 2000s laptop here. You don't just type gay in, boom. Yeah. That's a loaded word to just type into a search engine. Her mother's very involved in the church. So was my mother. That's something I can relate to. Mother, she was I think she was the youngest elder at my church. And she was most of my childhood, my mother was a Sunday school teacher too there. She taught Sunday school for like 17 years. So my memories of going to church, how could you be gay? The figure skating thing. But I mean, my memories of going to church was we got there early and we left there late because we had to do stuff and help stuff. Right. So to save him, maybe just, do some of that conversion therapy, but in the nice way. So, if you're gay, maybe we can just do enough sexual hetero things that'll flip you back. Not here. The joke here with him touching her breasts is like, well, maybe she just doesn't have big enough breasts. They don't say it, but I think it goes through a lot of people's head. She's like, anything yet? And he's like touching her. It's like, not really. And of course, that's the other thing too. They're told, sex is supposed to be reserved for marriage only. You're not supposed to have premarital sex. Hillary Faye at the gun range. So she talks about the idea that Jesus could restore her physical and spiritual virginity in the event of something bad happening, like being raped. Blasting the crotch. Nice. So this gives Mary the idea that maybe Jesus granting you a virginal heart. So you're pure again. So it gives her the idea that even though it's wrong for her to lose her virginity outside of marriage, maybe she could have that redeemed if she's doing it for what she thinks is a good heavenly cause, saving Dean. So here we go. Okay. Luckily, he's all revved up for this because he's been looking at some pornography. I like they even got T-shirts for the shooting range, an eye for an eye. My God. It's very clear here that she does not force herself on him. He's not being like raped here. They're both doing something they shouldn't be doing for various reasons, but they both have good intentions for this, and nobody's being hurt. Of course, it's going to result in her pregnancy, and yeah. It's like, how does he manage to get her pregnant if he's not into it. Well, again, they showed him getting a little into the mood, looking at stuff. So it's amazing how little it can take, maybe sometimes, to get a guy to come. They have a conversation on something I can't remember. Maybe one of the Kevin Smith movies, probably. So they also are all very well-to-do. They all, not only all religious, they live in this very clean community, and everybody's pretty damn well off. She's going to mention that she could have gotten her own car for her birthday, but instead she got a van for her brother, that's Macaulay Culkin, who has the wheelchair. And now they're part of the Christian Jewels, which is some sort of elite, I don't know, bullshit club at their school. Hilary Faye. And you see quickly that Roland is not really like the rest. There's nothing to suggest that he's not religious too, but he's not all swept up in it the way they are. And he just deals with Godflight, right? So they mentioned a Christian rock band called Godflight. That'll come up later. Veronica, the Vietnamese girl adopted by American missionaries, saving her from damnation, of course, because that's another thing they believe in here. You know, if you're from Vietnam and you're not Christian, well then, yeah. See, I could have had Alexis Gold edition. So obviously, quite wealthy families. Not something I can relate to. Not that like I grew up poor or anything like that. But I mean, the high school I went to, like a fraction of the kids had cars to go to school with, and none of them were like, you know, great cars. As I said before, whenever I see an American high school in a movie, there's only two extremes. They're either like really awesome high schools where everybody's like really well-to-do and drive awesome cars, and the school is really clean and has all these things like security cameras, security guards, and guidance counselors and nurses and stuff. Again, not my school. My school had a guidance counselor, but or it's like High School High, you know, the John Lovitz movie, where it's just like a complete shithole, metal detector. Everybody's poor and in gangs and on drugs, and the school just looks destroyed and doesn't have like any facilities or. All right, so now his parents have discovered Dean's little secret, and they've shipped him off to Mercy House, which again, places like this exist. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's the same place they would have shipped her if her pregnancy gets discovered, I think. I think they bring that up later. So anyway, their little carpool's been interrupted. No Dean. Stealth joke there. Stealth pun. Well, is he coming out or not? De-gayification. Yeah, I'd admit her. So yeah, she would have gotten sent there too. Well, she doesn't know she's pregnant yet either. We're getting ahead of ourselves, aren't we? So she does tell them that he's gay, which is no surprise at all to Roland. Yeah, the figure skating? Come on, people. Excuse me. The big Jesus sign they were painting. A gay. Yeah, we'll see how long that promise lasts. Again, something that people did or do actually believe. Gayness can be passed on. Cassandra, my Jewish student that is here because she kept getting kicked out of other schools. Hilary Faye has it her mission to save herself. Cassandra, the ultimate rebel, which Roland finds stimulating. Jesus loves you. Everyone else thinks you're an asshole. Bumper stickers. What was the name of that other Mandy Moore movie? It wasn't a... Maybe it was A Walk to Remember. She was in 2 or 3 around the same time. Yeah, now the more I think of it, I think that was A Walk to Remember. But what are the other ones called? Not that it matters that much, because they weren't very good. So they got a whole thing about creationism on the wall there. You know, evolution's not taught in this institution. All right, yeah, I got derailed when I was talking about certain. So there, I can't remember her name, but this actress here, she was Dewey's little sister in Scream. Well, Scream 2, technically, so that's like a year or two after. Maybe she only shows up in Scream 3. I don't know. And Scream 3 is 2000, so still at least 4 years earlier. And she's in another movie with Mandy Moore, where once again Mandy Moore is kind of, the bad guy, although not really. And that's The Princess Diaries, which is not that bad of a movie. The sequel is garbage, but The Princess Diaries, for what it is actually okay. Patrick Fugit, he's so cute. Most boys look like NASA employees. Patrick, again, is sort of the hip new... Oh, it's Pastor Skip's son, too. Forgot about that wrinkle, that Pastor Skip is his father. Is Pastor Skip their principal? Something like that? Yeah, but he's the cool new generation back at the time of Christians. He skateboards and such. Now that we would sing that every day in my church, because my church was called Trinity. Holy, 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 merciful and mighty, God in 3 persons, blessed Trinity. Yeah, we would that my church is gone now, but my church was called Trinity. So they're having some sort of so even just a few seconds of watching Mandy Moore perform is amazing to me. Even when it's some stupid, sappy Christian stuff. The Christian Jewels are also like a band. I have to say, one thing that I will like mock Christians for is this kind of shit. It's like when they do like Christian rock, like the concerts, like seeing the way they'll close their eyes and wave their arms. And I don't want to come down on people for being passionate, because when I went to rock concerts, I showed my passion and I bounced around, but I don't know, it all just feels very cultish in this. I don't know. It just seems weird to me for a rock band to come out and be like, praise Jesus, guys. Like, I don't know. Obviously, they're free to do whatever they want. It just, I don't know. All right, so now Roland is outside, skipping it, getting to know Cassandra, whom he finds fascinating, because she seems to be like the only other sort of unbrainwashed person around. This movie's proof that Macaulay Culkin can actually act, which is not really something we saw as a child actor. He just had a bunch of easy, silly roles that actually made him the biggest child star in the world for several years. I don't know. I've always liked Macaulay Culkin. He seems pretty self-aware. Like, he knows what his career was, and he doesn't mind that to several generations of people, that he'll always just sort of be like Kevin McAllister and those sort of things. And like, he's at peace with it. Obviously, he made a ton of money from it and has been able to live a life he likes. So I don't know. That's not easy. There's a lot of child stars that come out all messed up. Look at that forward flip by Pastor Skip. Whoop, there it is, which I'm sure was really hip in 2004. But I mean, it's kind of hard to find rap that's, I guess, acceptable. Jesus is in the house. But I mean, the kids are really into it. He's really speaking their language now. Down with the G.O.D. His movements here remind me a lot of like Tom Cruise. When Tom Cruise gets in his weird moods. Of his like super enthusiasm. This actually makes a little more sense to me than Tom Cruise, because at least this is based on something. Yeah. Alright, so let's all pray. Which is another thing, you know. In ordinary public schools, you don't do prayer, because the whole thing is the kids from various religious and non-religious backgrounds. We get to actually hear. It's interesting to hear internal monologue. We don't get to hear that in most movies. Some good jokes in here. Oh. So we get to see some of their private yeah, a couple people aren't praying. Mary's the one having some problems here. She's upset about the deal she made. And keep our president safe. This would have been the first term of George W. So again, the movie also sort of reflects maybe some reflection of American values at the time too. That kind of, there's sort of a comeback. You know, you see these things run in cycles. People talk about the idealized America of the 50s, and Reagan used that as his platform, and the 80s was kind of like that. It was like a return to traditional values and stuff like that. Then the 90s went all crazy with Bill Clinton and such. And again, when you got George Bush in, I think it was sort of another one of those returns to values. Plus, you had a wonderful war on terror, which I guess is over now. I don't know. So yeah, I mean, it's hard putting stuff into historical context, especially within the context of your own life, because I mean, all that was going on. How much did it apply to my own life? I don't know. These were my early 20s. All right, now Cassandra's really going to go for it here. She's going to speak in tongues. I shouldn't be drinking this pop, if you know. I shouldn't, but... She's going to show her boobs. Even Patrick. Even Cleopatra. She is. She's going to show them. Passow. But as pure as Hillary Faye is, she can see through it. She's saying she has a... Yeah, so Hillary Faye wants to help people, but she also, you know, wants the credit for it and the feeling of moral superiority. Oh shit, is my camera fucking up again? Man. Can't we fix this? This doesn't look good. I don't even have anybody bumping the cable anymore. Okay, hold on. Can we fix this? Just hold on. I did not do it. Try again. Stay tuned. That's not the right camera. Hold on. Stand by. Come back, Brio. There we go. Okay. Hillary Faye's attempt to flirt with Patrick, asking him which country he thought had the worst heathens. Right. Roland is her Hillary Faye's brother. Yeah. Make you wait in the van again. I love how she treats him. Just because he's in a wheelchair. You smell like Tia's dad. Oh man. Yeah, Faye is really mean. Like, who is the better mean girl in 2004? Is it Mandy Moore or is it Rachel McAdams? I go with Mandy Moore just because it's a mean girl within the context of, you know, being this great Christian person that's going to save everybody. Because I mean, as far as Regina George from Mean Girls goes, like, she knew what she was doing. In this, Hilary Faye has enough sort of delusion to think that, you know, that she's justified in what she's doing. Hello, gym class. She'd be suffocating to have as a friend. Okay, so here comes some of the signs of the pregnancy. Morning sickness. Fun. So they're forced to teach sexuality in school, but it's a pretty limited one. Jiggy with it. I will say, like, as embarrassing as my own sex ed program was, which I mean started I think when I was in grade 5, so this was elementary school. Like, it was clumsy and embarrassing and stupid, but we didn't have teachers or anybody there really moralizing or lecturing us, saying don't do it or anything like that, you know, or trying to scare us with the STD thing. You know, I remember talking to Jay, and Jay and I being of similar age, he's a few years older. Like, he remembers with the AIDS epidemic going on, he was just really afraid of all that. I wasn't, but again, I mean, I wasn't having sex back when I was that young or anything. But I mean, I didn't think about it very much, and maybe that makes me like. I mean, I wasn't having it, so it doesn't matter now. But I mean, maybe I would have been part of the problem. Would I have been one of those people? Well, it couldn't happen to me, you know, is what so many people think about so many things, even the era of COVID now, right? People are like, oh, you know, I'm healthy, I eat right, I'll be fine. Valerie Bertinelli Lifetime movie. Bitter harvest. There was a feeling of twilight in the air. All honeydew and lilac. Oh, God. I need to look up Valerie Bertinelli's filmography and see like what the movies she did actually were, because I'm more familiar with things like this that like parody the kind of movie she did. But anyway, the thing is, she mentions about taking a home pregnancy test because her period had stopped, but it turned out it was from cancer. But this does inspire Mary here that maybe she should take a home pregnancy test. That's all about to fall apart. I mean, this must be terrifying. Not only to be that young and possibly pregnant, but the world she lives in and has grown up in. And one of her friends has several jobs. Yeah, so yeah, her friend here, I was talking about how affluent most of them are. Obviously, Tia is not, and she's working a bunch of part-time jobs in addition to school just to try to keep up. So it's a little subplot that doesn't really get, but it does sort of explain. Please let it be cancer. So this is a really great moment coming up after this. A good use of music, not just the song, but like the way things are timed. We'll get to it. So yeah, boom, you're pregnant, Mary. Expect miracles. Trying every possible avenue here, wondering if maybe it's a false positive. Those do happen, but not usually. So she has to make an appointment. And yeah, so part of what's going on here also is that her mother while a good mother who loves her is so involved with all this other stuff that she's doing that her only child, her daughter, getting pregnant like right under her nose, she doesn't even notice even well into the months when she's very obviously pregnant. It's like, Mom, you can't wear that. You're right, I'll just take the sweater off. Faggotry. All right, so the secret of Dean is out. Faggotry. They're going to do a prayer circle for him. So Hilary Faye has broken her promise. The secret is out. You're not born again, you're born again. Good soundbite. Gay boyfriend Dean. And I think, does Cassandra notice? Oh no, not yet. Cassandra and Roland do eventually start to figure things out because, well, they're actually people that use their brains. It's not like everybody at this school is stupid, just a lot of them aren't really thinking critically or independently. And I don't mean because of the delusion of religion. I don't mean that. I just mean for some of the things that they don't notice. I like how Roland takes up smoking just to hang out with her. I probably would have done that for the right girl back in the day, too. What's funny is, like, I didn't become really, even though I never smoked when I was a kid, like, I just didn't see the need to. I was not super anti-smoking. I hung out with people that smoked. I didn't mind being around them. It wasn't until I was probably started university that I became very strongly anti-smoking, and that, like, I wasn't going to bother anybody about it. But, you know, I did not hang out around people while they smoked. Like, I consciously tried to be away from it and things like that. But I wasn't like that when I was young. Maybe I was just trying to show, like, I'm not cool enough to smoke, but I'm cool enough to be around it and be okay with it. Of course, I did smoke for a small period in my third year of university, but that was kind of a weird situation. It had nothing to do with anything. It was just more me trying to fill up time. Anyway, it didn't last. It was only maybe 6 or 7 months. And the whole time I did it, I knew it was stupid. Oh, we missed one of the better jokes there, of course, was that they noticed. She said, "There's only one reason Christian girls go to the Planned Parenthood." Roland, she's planting a pipe bomb? Okay, 2 reasons. Again, if you're watching the movie, you don't need me delivering these jokes, but I don't know. I talked through it before, so I felt the need to bring it up. Right. So I don't know how familiar American audiences are with Chantelle Kirby, but she's pretty big in Canada for a while, and they do a really good use of her song here. Just how the beats fit. Chantelle Kirby was sort of a part of a Canadian power couple because she married Rain Maida, the lead singer of Our Lady Peace, very popular band in the 90s and some of the 2000s, who I saw live a few times. So she's right in front of a church. She's going to have her little breakdown here. But I love how things are timed here with the music. Now, the first time she says shit, but I think it's dubbed. Obviously, somebody that never curses. Pause. Music gets low. Shit. Have to up it some. Fuck. Great work with the camera here. God damn. Which is the strongest of all for her. Music swells. I mean, that's a great little piece of filmmaking there. The way they use the music, the way they zoom in on the cross, zoom in on her from above as she gets to it. It's nice. It's really well done. It's a powerful moment. I know it's a little comedy, but it's a powerful moment. was a teenage girl, a highly religious person, who thought that by having sex out of wedlock, she was following God's plan to fix Dean. Now she's pregnant, which could mess up her whole life and take away everything from her. And now she's going to go a little rebellious here and tell them that not to go to hell or anything, but yeah, screw their prayer circle, basically. Patrick is there. Jesus isn't listening, Hilary Faye. Yeah. Prayer works. It's been medically proven. Hilary Faye moves fast. You show one little waver here, you could pollute the jewels and everything we stand for. Boom, she's out. Takes the pill up, pin off, kicks her out. Time to isolate and contain, huh, Hilary? Okay. An uppity hooty hoo. That was her mother. Seems to be going through something of a midlife crisis. Usually we associate midlife crisis with men, but it can happen to women too. And I'm not trying to be like a jerk or sexist or something like that. I'm not saying just because this woman wants to dress a little younger or dye her hair, that's like some sort of awful thing. I don't give a shit. Just saying. If people are gonna like point it out for men, like because they dress younger or try to drive a flashy car, it's just as valid for women, I think. Please don't tell me you're a lesbian. But the way she says it doesn't make it sound like, you know, because of my religious background, I'd really be upset about you being lesbian. It just makes it seem like more like if you're a lesbian, that really complicates things for me, you know, like because her mother doesn't come across as intolerant. She just seems very focused on the things she's focused on, and she doesn't want anything to sort of get in the way of that, derail that. And in the pursuit of that, she does sort of neglect her daughter a little bit. So she sees that 2 days after her 18th birthday and around prom, she would give birth. So this coincides with the school year, of course. It's the start of the school year. So she's talking to Dean. Dean looks like, what's his name? Anakin Skywalker here. I know they're dressed like up for some sort of religious thing wearing the robes, but he looks like he's dressed like Anakin Skywalker in like Jedi robes, and he's got the hair kind of just like what's his name had, Hayden Christensen. And you give Dean credit for his positive attitude because he's at this, although it's maybe not, it's misguided too, but he's just saying like, I'm going to beat this. Like he's still living in the headspace that there's nothing wrong with him for being gay, but he thinks, you know, I can fix this. Yeah, they're doing a Christian haunted house. Oh, so it's already Halloween, yeah. So she's already close to 2 months pregnant, I guess. I have to say, there's something very appealing to me about seeing Mandy Moore with angel wings. The witch. I mean, that's what they all think she is anyway. Cassandra the witch. Yeah. Tia is actually a little more dialed in than they are, but they just don't see it. So Tia doesn't quite follow the program exactly either. But as she's seen as lesser, they mostly just don't notice her. So again, it seems a little silly, but this is something that people can go through when they have. She's having a crisis of faith right now, so she's trying to maybe see if there's another kind of religion that works for her. Right now, she's into one of the weirdest ones, reading a book about crystal healing and using crystals. Again, a thing some people really believe. It's funny. We always have this conversation because we'll always like bring up something like Scientology or what the Mormons believe and stuff, and we'll say how stupid it is. But it's like, well, when think about how stupid like things like Christianity and Islam and Judaism are, if you really get down to what they're supposed to be built on and about too, it's just like people will accept religion if it's been around long enough and sort of proven to last. People like it. So sometime in my lifetime, what might be mocked might eventually become kind of the new standard, or I don't know. There seems to be a little person in the background there. In the library. See, Pastor Skip might be an idiot, but he knows his students. And he says he can notice there's something going on with Mary, so he's asking her friends to like look out for her. So Pastor Skip, well, kind of an idiot in some ways. He does care and he is trying. Yeah. But Hilary Faye does not quite do what he asked for. Ask you to be extra gentle, and they do basically a kidnapping here. Or an attempted kidnapping. Throw her into the van. Did they actually throw holy water on her at some point? Yeah, an exorcism. Like an exorcism? Oh my. Yeah. I love it when Christians yell that too. Christ died for your sins. Like, I don't know if they even really know what they're talking about, but it's something that sounds good. Oh, she knows about Veronica. You don't know the first thing about love. Oh, it's not a shove. She throws the book at her. And that's a good part. This is not a weapon, you idiot. Which is something I feel like a lot of people feel like saying to people about the Bible. It's not a weapon. It's not used to brainwash or control people, but of course it is. But it's not how it should be used. Okay, I know I'm moralizing fairly heavily here, but I mean, come on. Scooter, Mary, this is a Vespa. I've always wanted a Vespa. Vespa wouldn't be that great in a city like Halifax, though. Maybe when I move to Japan, a Vespa will be useful. Again, very, very good point there, Patrick. Yeah, he went there because he wanted to see her. Nice, clean neighborhoods. Yeah, because Hilary Faye had a little bit of a thing for him, but she's not dating right now. And she feels bad. She really does like Patrick, but it's interesting too, because the idea I'm not dating right now, like she didn't technically break up with Dean, and I know she shouldn't still be with Dean because Dean is gay. That's who he is. But under what they are all believing, although maybe not her and Patrick so much, is like the idea that like he's gay, but he can be fixed, and then they can get back together and resume their relationship. So as we approach Christmas here, Sandra knows she's wearing big, heavy sweaters and stuff to hide her. Man, what do they learn in this school? Like, do they learn math? Smoke's bad for the baby. So Andrea puts things together easily. And she says she'll help her. I don't know if Mandy Moore's tall. This Cassandra, whatever the actress's name, she's really quite tall. She seems to tower over everybody else. I mean, she obviously looks pretty tall next to Macaulay Culkin, who's in a wheelchair. But I mean, look, she's half a head taller than Jenna Malone here. And I know Mandy Moore's taller than Jenna Malone too, but I don't think she's that much taller. I think Mandy Moore is 5'10", which is pretty tall for a North American woman. Just tall enough to make it too awkward for me to date her. It's too bad. Because like I could date a girl who's my exact height, maybe even like half an inch taller. But once you get into it even more than an inch, it seems a little awkward. Some people it doesn't matter at all. And I mean, if you're a certain height, you're just going to deal with it. Like if you're a particularly short guy, like if you're under 5'7", if you're under 5'7", that means you are fairly short for a North American male. I'm 5'8", sort of and a half, I guess. Is there really any point in pointing out that half inch? I don't know. Helps your self-esteem. So that means I'm not short, but I'm under the average height. I think the average height of the North American male is maybe exactly 6 feet, or maybe it's 5'11", something like that. You have to be over 6'2" to be considered tall for a man, and under 5'7" to be considered short for one. Again, speaking North American terms. In a place like Thailand, I'd be pretty tall. We get a little clothing montage for some maternity clothes with Roland and stuff like that. I'm going to use Hillary Faye's the credit card. So again, like Hillary Faye doesn't need to have a job or anything. I guess her parents just like give her like a ton of money for her allowance. I sure as hell didn't have a credit card when I was in high school. I don't know if I've ever seen a movie where everybody at the table is drinking Sprite, except for right here. There's some New York fries there too. I mean, people talk about the challenges of dating someone in a wheelchair. I don't think it would bother me. I could absolutely be attracted, not just attracted to someone in a wheelchair, but like see myself in a real relationship with them. I know it would lead to some sort of complications, but I don't think anything that bad. I mean, I'm speaking for myself, right, as an able-bodied person. Oh, is it such an ordeal for me to date somebody in a wheelchair? Like, no, fuck off. Nowadays, though, because everybody wants it, the line of acting being blurred, like, is it offensive that an able-bodied person in Macaulay Culkin is playing a handicapped individual? Like, I don't think it should be. I mean, I think the vast majority of times we see people in movies that are in wheelchairs, they're usually played by able-bodied actors, I think. Or at least it is when it's obviously a name actor. I'll agree. There's no stars in a wheelchair. And maybe there should be. I don't know. But you do have to admit it is limiting in a certain way. Give Cassandra credit here, just to give her some time with Patrick. She's willing to do the conversion thing here with Hillary Faye. I mean, anywhere like where I live too, you go to the malls and it's all decked out for Christmas. But I give this place extra credit. Like, they're showing this really is a super like religious Christian community, because there's so much Christian stuff here. I almost want to barf Christmas stuff. So we'll have their little alone time moment back in the storage room with the different decorations that haven't been used. I think a nice shamrock for St. Patrick's Day. Very religious. I mean, it is named after a saint after all. I remember around this time, in like the mid 2000s, people talked a lot about maybe like there being a war on Christmas, because people saying happy holiday. It's 2021. Trust me, Christmas is not going anywhere. It's just as big everywhere. Like, I haven't seen it cut and toned down or anything. And maybe it's more for capitalism reasons than religious reasons, but still, I don't think anybody that's concerned about like Christian Christmas being diminished has anything to worry about. As far as like what Christmas means from a religious standpoint, that has nothing to do with what's on TV or stores or anything. That's up to individuals. So, yeah. So if you want to talk about Christmas being diminished, I think nobody can diminish it for you, right? I don't think so. If it means something to you, it means something to you. I think I don't want to say like it's a line or anything like that, but I can remember telling a girl she amazed me. One girl was a miracle. I'm saying she's not. Yeah. So she has not agreed to date him still at Christmas, but he's really tried. They almost kissed there, but she's still rebuffing him. He does not know about the pregnancy. Only Cassandra and Roland. I don't know what Elms is. Elms must be something religious. Okay. How great is Jesus? Pretty great. I've decided to accept Satan. Devote my life to Satan instead. Oh yeah, they're gonna do a little Christmas pageant thing here. The Stations of the Cross, I guess. So yeah, this is the bit where like nobody actually moves. Like they like create sort of a human tableau. It's all real people, but they all stay. That's a good point. Or not Stations of the Cross. That's later. There's an Easter thing, yeah, where they do like a cross thing. That was just what's the word? What's the word? Oh, why can't I think of the word? It'll come to me. You know what I mean. Time to put the moves on Patrick, Hillary Faye style, for Valentine's Day. I'll give Patrick credit. I mean, I don't know. I'm biased, so I mean, Hillary Faye is a million times more attractive than Mary to me, but at the same time, Hillary Faye is also kind of a stuck-up bitch, so I get it. And a nice Valentine from Patrick. So now she's quite pregnant. I mean, conception was like at the end of August, start of September. So now she'd be like 5 or 6 months in. Her missionary position. Right. So yeah, Pastor Skip's wife wants a divorce, and he won't give it to her because it's not part of God's plan. Like, these people aren't Catholics, but they do have like sort of that same thing about not getting divorces. Her mother is blonde now. What are those chocolate things? They look really good. Super unhealthy. They look kind of like full Joe Louis. I don't know. I remember telling years ago people about on the sausage factory about Joe Louis, and they didn't seem to know what they were. And they always sold them as halves, not full. So they were, but anyway, they're just a pastry chocolate thing, cream. So I don't know. But those kind of look like the full versions. But up here, they was called Joe Louis. Right, and the whole other thing too is like he's talking about divorce not being part of God's plan, but he's clearly having an affair with her. She doesn't want to talk about all this God stuff. She just wants to try to have a relationship. My God, are you always on? That's a Burns to Lisa quote in The Simpsons. When they had time to kill. He said, "So, what do you think about today's popular music?" Lisa says, "I think it distracts people from more serious issues." My God, are you always on? And yes, Lisa Simpson is always on. What are you doing? Skip. You fell in love with a man called Skip. I guess that's the other thing about being that religious. I mean, it's just everything. It doesn't matter what you're talking about. Like, it applies to it. It sounds exhausting to me. For every single thing that you do, you have to see it through the lens of the religion and how God sees it, or Jesus, or whatever. Allah, Muhammad. It sounds just exhausting. It sounds very invasive to me, really. I mean, people talk about being religious and how it's a comfort knowing that there's someone that will always love them unconditionally and stuff. And I understand how that is comforting, but I also find it sort of invasive. I want to have my own life, and I don't want, I don't like the idea of a higher power having some sort of rule over it, I suppose, that can sit in judgment of my choices. I mean, sometimes like when somebody's religious, I don't know, commits a crime or something like that, they might like haughtily say like, only God can judge me. Like, I don't even want to be judged by God, really. Nobody likes being judged. So I don't like the idea of a being that's on a higher level is omnipotent, and they're judging me. It seems unfair. I am a flawed. If I'm your creation, I am a flawed creation. It doesn't seem fair that you're judging me. Hung on a cross, indeed, Cassandra. Yeah, he got in pretty good shape for this. As he pushes Patrick away, she starts hanging out with Hilary Faye and them more. Like, I guess that's his. Yeah. So that was the little Jesus Christ Superstar in there, which is funny considering like it doesn't seem like something their school would really approve of. Because one of the things in Jesus Christ Superstar is it really does focus on the really human side of Jesus and his own flaws. There's certain people in Christianity that think that Jesus didn't have flaws and he was perfect, or at least as perfect as a human gets, and I get that. But sometimes people don't even like pointing things out like that. I mean, there's a part where he asks God if he's forsaken him. Oh, calling her fat? That's harsh. There's retarded again. I don't know. I get why people shouldn't say retarded and call people retarded. I don't know. Like, this is just a video no one's going to watch anyway. But if this was like a monetized video with ads, I get demonetized for saying retarded, even though I'm only saying it and quoting a movie. Like, I'm not using it on anybody. I guess it's the same thing with various racial slurs. I'm not going to get into it, but I don't feel wrong in saying them if I'm talking about them. I think there's a difference between saying a word because you're talking about the word itself or you're quoting something and using the word. But some people say, like, it doesn't matter, you just can't say it at all. And really, when it comes to that, it only seems to be really one word, and I'm not going to go on to think about that because it's not like white guy wishes he could say N words. Like, no, but it does seem a little silly to me that other racial slurs for some reason, or you can still say them. Maybe you can't use them, but you can say them because it should be the same thing. You shouldn't use any. But I think if you are having a discussion about them or bringing them up, you can say them instead of being like, "Ooh, magic secret word, can't even say it." I just don't believe in giving any word that amount of power. It's like the whole Voldemort thing. It's like we never say his name. He who should not be named, which I always thought was very childish of the wizarding community. I get it. They were afraid of him. He was a bad guy. He was like a superpowered Hitler that went around murdering people, and he was terrifying. But the idea still that even after his supposed death, they wouldn't say his name, it all felt very childish to me. That people were too afraid to say his name. Once again, Skip's doing his best here. He's trying to include Cassandra. Poor Mary at this point is so pregnant that doing anything physical is exhausting. So nobody I knew got pregnant when I was in high school. But the whole thing was when I went to high school, there was an entirely girls' high school called Holy Angels. That's where the pregnant girls went. But it seems weird because it's like plenty of girls went there and didn't get pregnant, but the ones that wound up pregnant always were there. Like I can't remember anybody I knew that was at my school who got pregnant and then went there. I know it did happen. Holy Angels. That sounds very religious, but I mean it was really just an ordinary girls' school. Although I think they did have some nuns for teachers. And I think their classes were easy because I remember there were a few girls there that had like super high averages and won like various academic prizes, and they did not strike me as particularly smart. I don't think their classes were as hard as ours. I mean, it's certainly not as hard as the special ones at the academy, because I mean most high schools offer honors courses like which are higher. Sydney Academy is one of the schools that's part of the International Baccalaureate program, the IB program, which is again international, it's all around the world. And that's one of the main reasons I went there. I did not take full IB. I only took the classes I wanted, English, French, and history. And I did quite well in them. And when you take those exams, the IB exams, they're not administered, they're not provided by the school. They come down from the organization, and they're marked by them too when you send them in. So they were pretty cool. They were marked. They had a weird marking system for those exams too. They were marked out of 7. I got a 7 in my English, a 6. No, was it one of them? I got a 7. I think I got a 7 in either English or history. Maybe it was history. Maybe it was a 7 in history, a 6 in English, and a 6 in French. Yeah, so they found that embarrassing photo of her. That's not good enough for Hillary Faye. I was talking about God's judgment before. She's like, not good enough. What about my judgment? And this is where you do start to feel for Hillary Faye, because even though she's kind of a bad person, she doesn't mean to be. She's praying really hard here. Please, Lord, just tell me what I need to do. See, she's just a little lost and misguided. She's not a bad person. She doesn't want to hurt people or cause problems. She's just all screwed up. So you do feel something for Hillary Faye. It doesn't excuse everything she's done, but nobody in this is truly bad. All right, so Hillary Faye decided the best thing to do is do a bunch of offensive graffiti all over the school and frame Sandra or somebody for it. Only assholes pray. That's a good one. God equals dog. Another good one. There was something of a pastor skip, but I couldn't make it out. Hillary something humps. Of course, she had to put her own name in there to divert attention away. I mean, I don't know why this always seems to work. Who would be like, nobody's this stupid. Imagine you go to your school, a religious school, and you use spray paint to put up a bunch of offensive graffiti all over the school, and then you just leave the spray paint in your own locker. Like, you can have it anywhere, but you put it in the locker where they can actually find it. Oh, the woman there does try to protect the ultrasound thing, but now Pastor Skip finds it. So give that woman credit, whoever she was. But now the secret's out on that. I mean, she could say something like, that's like my aunt's baby or something, but oh well. Mary Faye takes some sick. There. It's a good. What are you afraid? Puts her in her place nicely. Because Jesus told you to? See, this is the other thing about some of the hypocrisy of some of these adults. They're saying Jesus this, Jesus that, and now she's saying, well, I had a vision and Jesus told me to do this thing, and they're treating her like she's nuts. Like, this is the way you program these kids. Skip's right here. Like, how did you not know your own daughter was pregnant? She has stress eating dysmorphic complex. Now he does go off the rails. God is punishing us for our sin. By getting our attention through Mary. That doesn't even make sense. And it really doesn't. I agree with that. You're not fit to help her because you have no fucking clue what you're doing. And Dr. Skip means well, his mother means well. They're good people that try to help, but like, just send her to Mercy House. Oh, withholding. That's cold, Skip. Cassandra expelled. This is a good moment too for Roland because he doesn't have a drive now. And I will say something for Roland, even though he's an independent thinker, in some ways he has not been independent because of the wheelchair. He's always had to rely on Hilary Faye, and then he transferred that to Cassandra. So now he does spend some time alone, and it actually is good for him. So now we're at the everything is bad part of a lot of these movies, just before the final act. And we get a sad little montage. It's a nice song here. There's Dean with his roommate. Dean's like, I don't feel cured. I don't know the name of the song, but it's nice. Even Hilary Faye. Is that too loud? I wanted to put it up a little. For a movie that I know so well and like so much, it's actually been a few years since I watched it. Still like it as much as I always have. It's given me a lot to think about and talk about. Maybe it's not so interesting for people to hear. I don't know. Seems a lot louder. I only put it up like by one. When I put out this thing on Disney Plus, I have to turn my volume like way up to hear anything. My Disney Plus is super low. I don't know why. But I can't go from Disney Plus to television. If I do that, like, my eardrums will explode. So everybody has their moment here, hurting for various reasons. And now Cassandra feels bad for starting off and wants to, and he's fine again, because you know what? Yeah, he's in a wheelchair, but he's not helpless. He's all right. Really should quit smoking though. I mean, here you can't even smoke at like the outdoor parts of cafes. You're getting ready to ship her off to Mercy House. Who agreed? All right, that's the other thing. You need a mother and a father. It's certainly good to have a mother and a father, but yeah, I think that is one of these problems. This mostly religious view that like the only way a child can properly be brought up is with a mother and father. No, I think there's all sorts of different ways of doing it. Just what matters is having parents that love you and care about you. Doesn't matter what their sex is, or even necessarily their relationship to each other. I mean, I grew up in the traditional way. My mother and father got married and had myself and my sister. Oh, poor Hillary Faye. She has a zit on prom night. Is that another part of fate or God? Now her card's been declined. So it took her a long time to catch on. Again, she must have had a lot of money to only now, like, finally, like, have Roland's spending catch up with her. It says, yeah. And he has this little moment here. He says, I'm a lot better. I went from relying on Hillary Faye to you, and, I'm fine on my own, at least sometimes. I know I couldn't play somebody in a wheelchair because, like, I'm such a fidgeter, like, I'm always moving. Like, because, I mean, somebody in a wheelchair, like, they can't move their legs at all, which sounds really easy, but I don't know. Like, I'm not, like, it wouldn't be really big and obvious, but you might see some, like, vibration going on. I'm really bad at keeping still. And everything comes back to The Simpsons. Lisa talk. I think again, it's like Lisa complaining about the state of the arts in Springfield, and they show. I can't remember what play it's supposed to be. She was supposed to play FDR or something, but it's like Krusty, and he gets up out of his wheelchair and delivers his line. He goes, "Oh wait, that's right, I'm crippled." Might have been FDR. They're gonna crash the prom, even though she's expelled. She's supposed to be at Mercy House. Ah, right, and this where the. I mean, he knew this anyway, but now they have hard proof that she bought the paint at the Home Depot. It says at 3 a.m. What Home Depot is open at 3 a.m.? This seems like a Home Depot that caters exclusively to people that are gonna, do vandalism and graffiti. By the way, here's the nice boy that you want to date that, has not been pushy or stalkerish and has tried to respect your wishes, but, really wants to date you, knows you're pregnant, doesn't care. Always talk about being a good guy and trying to do the right things. I don't know. This is heavy stuff for high school, I have to say. Like, it's hard to say. There were girls I was infatuated with in high school, and I never got to date any of them. I did date a little in high school. Nothing really great came out of it. What if a girl I was dating was pregnant with somebody else's kid? Irrelevant whether or not it was her previous gay boyfriend or whatever. Like, but I didn't care, and she was probably going to keep the kid. And I mean, to be so young and in that situation, I don't even know how well I'd handle it now, 20 years later. More than 20 years. Right. So, Godflood, the Christian rock band, is going to perform at their prom, which was a big coup for Hillary Faye. Godflood are portrayed by a real band that existed called Day Theory, and I don't know if they're still together or what, but the lead singer of Day Theory is a Canadian guy. He's actually from Cape Breton, and he's not related to Riho, my friend Ryan, through blood or anything like that. But I think Ryan's aunt married into that guy's family by marrying his father, who they obviously was the second marriage for both of them or something like that. So his name is Joe Mccloud, and he's done stuff. He's had a TV presence. He was on some sort of like Canadian ghost hunting show, like except where It's almost like a weird game show, and it's like sending kids in, and he's like the host, and he's done some other things. But anyway, but he also was the lead singer. I met him a couple times. He was a nice, cool guy. When I met him, anyway, I can't say it. But anyway, I never really heard much Day Theory, but Day Theory play the role of fictional band Godflood here, and they're pretty good. So it is kind of neat that I did at least meet a person who's in this movie, although it's only for a few seconds. But you know, he's been around. He was in one of the Scooby Doo movies as like just some sort of extra like skater punk or something like that. So you know, he has some sort of small credits. There's no place like home. So I mean, that was. But anyway, when I met him, I'd already seen this movie because I met him maybe 2 or 3 years after that, and that was like the first thing I said to him. Man, you guys were Godflood. That's awesome because I love Save so much. So you will get to sort of see him for like half a second here. After the band performs a song, he says something like "Jesus loves you guys" or something like that. Crash in the prom. Yeah, so there he is. Don't know what the song is. I don't know if they wrote it or. For all I know, that is an actual. But I don't think so. I think it has weird lyrics, so I think they probably just said, "Try to write a Christian rock song for this," and I doubt that he really bounces around with his arm up like that when he performs. I think this is just something that Christian rock bands and people seem to do. They do the arm up thing, which is fine. Frustration wails? I must have read that wrong. Ooh, it's all falling apart for Hillary Faye. That seems really too loud. Ooh, the vocalizing there was not very good. There's a girl on the keyboard. Is she part of the band? Yeah, praise Jesus, everybody, Jesus loves you. So actually, you do see him more than I thought. Yeah, that's Joe Mccloud. I'm Mccloud on my mother's side. Everybody from Cape Breton is a Mick or a Mac something. Very Scottish. Hillary Faye is, I guess, prom queen or whatever. Or maybe she's not, but she's got a little tiara that Tia really wants. But now, of course, she's going to narc on them for being here. That is not acceptable to Hillary Faye. Christian thing to do would be to let them stay, which is, I've been doing the Christian thing my entire life. I love that line. Different layers. Ooh. Any more so good in this. Yeah, that kind of backfired. Now, will you swear to God? A lot of black at this prom. Mary really stands out wearing the red dress. Liar! Now God will strike you down with a lightning bolt. Ah, Tia has turned on you. Oh yeah, well, we missed that part. I blabbed something else when Tia actually found the other thing with her signature on it. That does prove Veronica. See, Veronica believed in all this stuff, and it turns out Hillary Faye is a... That's a great excuse for anything, right? Jesus told me to. Here come some of the Mercy House people. They stole a van, I guess. Look, very cool black. Dean looks great in black. Does she know who they are, or she's just screaming that everybody's freaks? Whatever. Poor Hillary Faye. You do, even though she brought all this on herself, you do still feel kind of bad for her. The good news is that sometime between this, Dean has figured out this is who he is, and there's nothing wrong with him, and he doesn't need to be fixed. So that's nice, too. So now he's there with his own prom date. A boy. She's like, is this your life partner? That's the thing. Dean never knew. She never told him, and he's the father. It's like, that's awesome. So Dean's a hell of a nice guy, too. I might have been like, oh, I'm about to embark on my life as a fully out gay guy. And it turns out the one time I had sex with a girl, she's pregnant. But he's like, no, that's great. Yeah, she's like, he's your life partner. Prom date. Now he's not going to do the Christian thing. He's going to tell them to get out because they're sinners that belong at Mercy House. Look, he even threatens to arrest them, have them arrested. All a gray area. So here's the one sort of big moralizing moment. Maybe some people have a problem with it, but I don't. More ambiguity. Bible is very clear. Bible. Yep, people still do. See? And good for Dean. He says, I know in my heart Jesus still loves me. He didn't lose his faith. And that's the good thing. It's not about people realizing that religion is stupid and they, should give up on it or anything like that. It's just, not conforming to what other people's ideas of what it should be. Dean says he feels in his heart Jesus loves him. Who is anybody to tell him he's wrong? Oh, but Hillary Faye has to steal the spotlight here by ramming Jesus. I mean, she's the one that put it up. Still wearing the tiara. I do have to say that she might be the one person that comes out of this. Maybe she does lose her faith. Maybe after this, she's not religious at all. Because she feels almost sort of betrayed by her faith. Just because things didn't work out for her. I don't know. Not bad driving, really. Like, she knows not to hit it head on. Avoid, like, a neck injury. Uh-oh, and of course, this being a movie, our pregnant heroine is going to go into labor. Cassandra loved it. It's awesome. And Jesus' head comes off. Oh, that's not great. And she screams, Jesus Christ. Little shot of the tiara falling in the back. Pick up on that later. That's the Jesus face you painted, and now it's staring into your soul. Roland's a good brother. Tries to comfort her. That's true. It does suck that you have to remember your prom is awful. I mean, in movies and TV and the media, we build up prom like it's such a special, magical night. Like, I didn't care. I went. It was fine. I'm glad I don't have bad memories of it, but I don't have amazing, awesome memories of it either. People put so much pressure on themselves to have a good prom. Some people think, like, it's definitely the night to lose your virginity and stuff, and I don't know. I don't think you need to set some sort of date for that kind of thing. So you think Jesus still loves me? It's like, yeah, sure. Why not? Because, I mean, isn't that supposed to be Jesus' whole thing? Even if you sin, he still loves you. You can be forgiven. See, that's one thing I do like about Christianity is the idea of forgiveness. The idea that if someone is truly sorry or repents or whatever, or shows remorse, that it is possible to forgive them. And I think forgiveness is a very hard thing if it's something awful. Imagine somebody hurts your family, I don't know, kills somebody. They drive drunk and they kill and they kill your mom or something. I mean, you would just have so much hate for that person. But I think the healthy spiritual thing to do is find it a way, and probably not right away, but maybe be able to find a way to forgive them. And that's easy for me to say because I haven't gone through it, you know. And I would never judge anybody if they said I couldn't forgive them. But I do like the idea of being forgiven and being able to forgive. I think it's something that humans need, like beyond religion. I think it's something we need because holding on to hatred and things just eats you up inside. All right, so now we cut to. So this is the song "Flowers in the Window." What's interesting about this is "Flowers in the Window" by a band called Travis, and I had like just a few months, I think, before this movie. I bought the CD that the song is called "The Invisible Band." I just remember it was one of those times I bought a CD just because I only liked one. I just heard one song and liked it. They had a song called maybe "Side," and a music video of maybe a guy looking for UFOs or something. I thought it was a great song, so I bought the CD, and it's not a bad CD. They sort of faded away, but this is a nice song, "Flowers in the Window," which you can't really hear, but you'll hear more as it goes. Yeah, here we go. So there's the birth of the baby, which is a girl, I think. There's Pastor Skip in the parking lot, not sure what he's supposed to do. He's got flowers. Oh, look at you now, flowers in the window, such a lovely day. I'm glad you feel the same. Now, out in the crowd, you are one in a million, and I love you so. Flowers grow. So now Dean is openly gay, and he's a high school graduate, I guess, and he's a father. They must have classes at Mercy House, right? They must still continue to do classes. It must be some sort of like boarding school, high school situation. That is a prom night to remember. Giving birth to your kid. Oh, disposable camera. CS 2004. Those are going to pretty much disappear from the world in the next years. There's the end. And now I think we go back to Canadian casting. So yeah, this movie has a strong Canadian presence. I think it was shot in Canada. Tia was Heather Matarazzo. That's what I was trying to say. Who's in Scream sequels and Princess Diaries. Let's listen to the song. Yeah, lead singer Joe Mccloud. He even got the credit. But I mean, his band. I'm surprised because maybe it wasn't. I thought it was his band though. I was pretty sure it was his band. Day Theory. You can check out Day Theory. You can probably find them on YouTube or something. So what good would living do me? Brian Wilson. You think this song would have more covers? I'm not really aware of very many covers of this, despite being one of like the songs, you know, just a massive song. On Pet Sounds, of course, which is often considered the second best rock album ever, after only the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club. The world could show nothing to me, so what good would living do me? Go up. Oh, listen to Mandy Moore. She released a couple good albums in the 2010s. More quiet and folky. Oh, she's done a lot of cool stuff. She did an episode of Clone High, I remember. She's got a pretty interesting career and presence. There, now you can be like, that sounds like Michael Stipe, because it is Michael Stipe. So he's only doing the backup. He's a great singer, but it does sound a little odd in the song. Peter Buck is being mentioned for some reason. He's obviously, of course, part of Miriam. So there's more, but I'll stop it there. So that's saved. I don't know. I find it a very uplifting movie. And I did get talking about some religious stuff because, you know, through my life, I've thought a lot about my own faith and where it went and what happened to it and how my perceptions changed of religion. You know, I don't have any regrets. I don't feel upset or annoyed that I was brought up Protestant or that I, you know, did a lot of church stuff when I was young. There was nothing wrong with it. The only reason I stopped in my mid-teens was I started my first ever job was I started reffing hockey. And when you start at the bottom, you do the little kids games, and there are a lot of Sunday morning games. So I had to go there instead of church. So when I was 15, I kind of stopped going to church. But, you know, through my life, I've still, at times like Christmas, and if I was around, maybe Easter or something, gone back to church or various churches with my mother because it's important to her. My mother likes to hand wave my lack of faith, like pretend like it's not there, or, you know, or I'll come around, I'll change. I don't know. It's funny. But I mean, despite my mother's own strong faith and all that stuff, you know, she's nothing like some of the characters in these movies. You know, my mother never had a problem with gay people or thought, you know, that needs to be that it's something that needs to be fixed or purged, things like that. But yeah, so I find it's an uplifting movie because it's not anti-religious, it's not anti-Christian. It just shows how some people can become a little misguided in certain environments. And as I said, I was surprised to learn. I take it for what it's worth because maybe these people were exaggerating themselves. But I mean, I really did read testimonials of people saying they went to schools like this and grew up in communities that were very much like this, where everybody was acted that way. And it all seems so weird and strange to me. It's funny. I mean, on the one hand, where I grew up, Cape Breton still feels kind of conservative and old-fashioned, and obviously there's a lot of churches and religion and stuff. But on the other hand, I didn't feel so touched by it. And the other thing about Cape Breton and Nova Scotia in general is it's predominantly Catholic. You know, I grew up Protestant, and on the street Ryan and I lived on, besides Ryan, I had a couple other friends too. And even though we lived on the same street, we did not go to the same elementary school. Because they went to the one that was largely Catholic, St. Joseph's, and I went to the one that was Protestant. Even though there's nothing religious at all about the schools by this time, you know, there wasn't prayer in school or anything at this point. They were just ordinary public schools. Mine was called Colby. And so, yeah, but it's still a thing. And it was certainly more of a thing back then, too. I mean, my mother, a Protestant, marrying a Catholic, wasn't a huge deal, but I know there were people in my father's family they weren't thrilled about it. They did not seem like it was the right thing to do at the time. I think they got over it quickly, but it was more just some belief they were kind of raised with. It wasn't like Catholics and Protestants like hated each other or anything like that, but maybe they thought they were supposed to sort of keep to themselves. I don't know. Around the same time, you had the Troubles in Ireland, which centered around that. So it was interesting. But I mean, yeah, I had a strong presence in the church growing up. I was there every Sunday. Again, got like other people, kids, because I mean, I know plenty of kids, when they talk about their memories of church, it was annoying, it was boring, but it was a lot quicker for them. They got dressed, they put on their clothes, they sat through the service, then they left. That was not my experience. My experience was we got there quite early because usually my mother had to set something up for her lesson in the Sunday school class, and maybe she had people, the elders of the session to meet with and talk with about stuff. So I had a lot of time just sort of running around in the church and places before anything got started. Then we had, of course, and the way our services always worked was the service was, your typical hour-long church service, give or take a few minutes. But once you got about 15, 20 minutes in, there'd be a hymn. And as that hymn was going, that was the signal for kids, I guess, under a certain age, like 13, 14, they would go in and they'd go to Sunday school. And the next 45 minutes of the service wouldn't have the kids. So, I mean, I did that for a while. And then, of course, I got older and started sitting through the service and things. My only memories of church being really annoying and boring was, again, back when I was a kid, even though we had our own church, Trinity, like I said, for some reason, I can't even remember, my mother went to a different church for Good Friday services, a church that was downtown, a much bigger church than ours. And they had these super long, hours long services. We never went for the whole thing, but we went for a good chunk of it. And I always found that excruciatingly boring because it wasn't even my own familiar church. And I don't know, the hymns they sang didn't seem to line up to ours. And I didn't know the minister and things like that, or the choir, because I grew up in my church. Everything was very familiar. It was interesting because it's not like I knew people that well being a little kid at first, but I mean, there was just this whole community of people who knew exactly who I was, and they knew things about me. My mom would say she bumped into so-and-so when she went out to the store the other day, and they asked about me. I'm like, who is that? She's like, oh, from church. All these people knew who I was. They knew what school I went to, roughly what my age was. They were always asking so, I mean, there is that feeling of community you get from having a church and growing up in a church. I was baptized there. And then when I was about 13, I did my confirmation, which I think is better than maybe, because I think in some, when you're Catholic, isn't your confirmation a lot younger? I don't know. At least you're old enough to make a choice. I don't know. I don't want to step on anybody's toes or say anything wrong there. But again, confirmation wasn't something I wanted to do really, but I did it. It wasn't awful. It wasn't bad. It was just go to the church a few nights a week, blab about some stuff. I don't even remember it now. It wasn't so bad. I mean, your Protestant church, specifically branch, was United. If you know anything about the various branches of Protestantism, United is not that old, and it's pretty progressive and pretty liberal. Whenever you're talking about some progressive thing brought in, accepting gay people or having gay marriage or talking about trans people, and the United Church was right on. They were the first, pretty much. They were right on the edge of that cusp of that kind of stuff. So, I mean, it's gotten to a point. I mean, maybe they even are. I think they're even kind of overcompensating at this point. Not that there's anything wrong with it, because I remember the church that my church kind of folded into after it closed. It's a different church. I remember we had a minister, and she would, really make some of her announcements try to be very all encompassing, because she would mention stuff like LGBTQ, etc., and things like that. Because then they talk about things like communion, right? The whole thing of when you have communion is you don't even have to be a member of a church. The whole point is everyone's welcome. You can take it or not. That's one thing. As I got older and lost my faith, I don't participate in communion, and that's the other thing. I really hate going to church when communion happens because it grinds everything to a halt. Everything is so slow. I wish they would at least do the bread and wine or grape juice or whatever it is, depending on the church, at the same time, but they don't. They go around, they pass out the trays, everybody gets a little piece of bread, and then they have to do the whole thing all over again for the wine or juice. It's just do them both at the same time, man. That was another duty my mother had to perform a lot. She usually had to be one of the people carrying the trays, and she always said she had such nerves about it, she thought she was going to drop it, which I thought was asinine, but it's weird. I mean, I've got a social anxiety thing, and I've got anxiety about various things, but certain things never bothered me then, don't bother me now. Like in church, there's nothing really about church that gives me anxiety. Like I grew up again as somebody very involved. Sometimes I had to do stupid little readings. I'm not saying they're stupid, but when kids do readings, I read them. I didn't care. And so as I was a singer, I sang in uh, children's choir. Sometimes I had solos. That was all fine. I didn't mind doing it. I liked to sing, so it didn't matter to me if it was hymns. Some of the hymns were very nice. So anyway, we'll wrap up there, but just throw in a little bit of my own personal experience with religion and church in there. So I said, as like sort of what maybe people are not surprised that, it's so surprising that Cole's some sort of heathenistic atheist. But the truth is, I came from pretty religious, churchy background, not super conservative, but I mean, it had a strong presence in my life. I didn't have any sort of awful event that broke me away from it. Oh, I will have to say, I was one of the kids who was so full of faith that I believed in things longer than most kids, including Santa Claus. Like most kids knew there was no Santa Claus like 2, maybe even 3 years before I did, because I just was wide-eyed and I wanted to believe so bad. And I have to say, finding out there was no Santa really was a huge blow to my faith. Because the way I saw it was, okay, we're reading about Jesus and things from the Bible, these things from over 2,000 years ago, and some of the stuff is supernatural. And that does not seem to exist in the world anymore. It's like if God has a presence in the world, he doesn't seem to do things the way he used to. There's no burning bush talking to anybody. And the various things that happen in the Bible. None of that happens anymore. In fact, anytime nowadays in our modern world, if somebody says God spoke to them or did that, even religious people who totally believe in God are like, cuckoo, you're nuts, buddy. So I was just like, I'm trying to reconcile that with the world we live in now. So it's just like, well, Santa Claus, he's kind of proof of God because he's the one magical thing left. He still performs magic. He does something in one night that should be impossible. So finding out that, that is impossible, there is no Santa, that was actually a huge blow to my religious faith. And it was not too long after that I just started to question everything, and it all sort of fell apart for me. But anyway, Saved is a fun movie that I just find it really uplifting. I really enjoyed it when I saw it in the theater. That was a fun time. As I said, it's one of the first movies I think I bought on DVD. And I think it holds up really well. I really like it. And of course, I just adore Mandy Moore. She's so wonderful. But full credit to the other actors in here too, Macaulay Culkin, Patrick Stewart, Jenna Malone. They're all really good. I like the soundtrack. I like how it's shot. It's a good, quirky movie with a nice message. It's not anti-religion. It's not about making fun of people for having faith. It makes fun of them a little bit, but again, in the context of the movie, I think it makes sense. I don't think there's anything cruel or mean about it. So yeah, it's a nice little movie that I find a little uplifting. It's something I needed around this time of my life. Again, I was looking at all these movies that I want to do, and I was thinking, just none of them are right for tonight. And then I finally found Save, and I was like, yes, that can work. So I guess I didn't really have anybody along with me. I did not pick a good time for this, but maybe people will see this later. I hope so. Anyway, it'll be up there. So thanks a lot to anybody who's maybe tuned in to watch after this live broadcast. All right, peace out, guys. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye. Sorry, I did that wrong. I did not end the broadcast. Ending the broadcast now, guys. Bye. Okay. Yes, end broadcast.